What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode with Broke Girls Art School. This is going to be part 3 of my 4-part real-time video series going over techniques for dog portraits. Typically I do time lapses. I thought it would be cool to do something in real time so you guys can see exactly the techniques that I'm using. So part 1, I went over how to burn a nose. Part 2, I did the mouth. Part 3 is going to be a tutorial on the eyes, and then part 4 will be one just on basic fur texture shading. So don't forget to smash that like button if this video helped you out, and remember to subscribe so you can see my future content. And I'll be posting the links for the other videos in the description below, so feel free to check all of them out. Alright, so we're going to be starting off with the right eye. So as I said in my other videos, I always recommend erasing a little bit of the graphite off the top. I feel like if you burn over like something that has a lot of pencil on it, it kind of like sinks into the wood and it's a lot harder to erase afterwards. And I don't like having any residue of the pencil. And again, I use these gloves so that way the oils from my hand don't sink into the wood and it keeps me from smearing around the pencil. So I'm gonna erase this until it's just light enough to where I can still see it. And I always start off with my burner at a little bit of a lighter temperature. Like right now I have mine at a 3 on the detail setting, just until I, you know, kind of get a feel for it. Especially if I just freshly cleaned a tip off. They tend to burn a lot hotter right after you clean them. So when doing eyes, I always recommend having these little like white spots to kind of show the light source. I think it adds a nice little cute kind of cartoony aspect. You can see here there's like hair going in front of the eye, so you want to make sure you don't leave out details like that. Alright, now I'm going to hike up my burner a little bit to about a 4.5. I'm going to go a bit darker in the center because the pupil's obviously always the darkest part of the eye. And there's also like a dark shadow coming down from the top of the lid. I always really like accentuating shadows like this because it gives the piece more dimension. Well, just so you guys know, I'm using the same tip that I was using for the other 2 videos of this series, the razor tip transfer shader. And I usually go in with more of a mid-tone, like I won't go in super dark right away. I like to kind of work in my darker tones. I don't want to burn too fast and then end up blowing out or have the tip sink into the wood. And always make sure that you're moving your pen in the direction of the fur. And eyes usually have like this really nice dark rim, especially working on pets, and then I usually like to take and drag out from that darker rim to add some more fur texture. I'm gonna turn my burner down just a little bit to like a 4 on my dial. And just so you guys know, I'm always constantly moving my heat up and down when it needs to be adjusted. I always want to be moving at a comfortable speed. And go in and darken up some details around the fur. Now I'm going to kind of go in and capture this big shadow coming down on the side of the eye because it just gives it a lot of shape. So you want to make things like that stand out. Kind of follow this cut line. Again, make sure you're still doing strokes in the same direction as the fur. I'm gonna up my heat. So when I'm doing bigger areas and I'm moving my pen around pretty quick, I'll usually up my heat a little bit just so I can knock out bigger chunks faster. And the longer you've been doing this, the more confident you'll get at different speeds. But while you're learning, I always recommend low and slow. Go over and erase this a bit more. And then we can start tying in. I'll kind of like pick off chunks. So like, you know, I just did this chunk of shadow and now I'm gonna merge that into these long hairs that are coming off of the sides of the mouth. And if I've had my pen not touching the wood for a while, I'll sometimes just go into a dark spot just to kind of get some of that heat off of the tip so I don't have, you know, really dark marks when I set my pen to the wood again. So going on the sides of the mouth here, hang on, let me zoom out in my camera. All right, so you can see here going along the sides of the mouth, these are long strands. So you wanna make sure you accentuate that. because that'll differentiate the length of, you know, the fur here to the length of the fur on the ears, etc. And it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. I mean, especially if, like me, for example, I do a lot of portraits. So like I'm not gonna spend 40 hours on a dog portrait to make sure I have every strand of hair in the perfect spot. But if I just make sure I at least follow the general direction of the hair, then it still has the same look of the picture come across. And don't get me wrong, when people spend 40 hours on a portrait, they really turn out amazing, but I like to be able to finish my projects within, you know, 4 to 5 hours. I'm super busy with tattooing, drawing for tattoos, woodburn commissions, so I need to be able to flip my projects quickly without losing important detail. And I feel like this tip helps a lot with that because it covers more surface area. But I can still utilize the edges of it to make it crisp and precise at the same time. It's another reason why I recommend stylizing your drawings a little bit. Kind of simplifies the design for you. I'm gonna go back to the upper part of the eye, start knocking out some of these shadows. Kind of fading out from like a darker shadow to a lighter shadow on the outer edge of the eye. And the more values you have in your piece, the more depth it's gonna have, the more realistic it's gonna look. So that's another reason why I love using my Dremel tool at the end, because it gives a whole nother value of contrast with those highlights. And I'll go in and do like really dark spots as well, just so it's adding more contrast. All right, now I'm gonna up my heat just a little bit more. I'm at about a 6 now, and I'm gonna make these shadows really dark. Like I was just saying, to add a little bit of contrast. I'm turn it down just a smidge. It's burning a little hot for my liking. Like I said, guys, constantly adjusting my heat. Now I have that nice drop shadow coming off from the lid. I'm gonna go in and make the pupil a bit darker. Yeah, and I'll be going in later for those white spots on the eyes with my Dremel tool. So my heat is at about a 5 right now. I'm gonna go in and get this bridge of the nose connecting the eyes. You know, a lot of times when I'm burning, guys, I'll kind of I'll tilt my pen on the side to get those smaller strands, or I'll just use the very tip of it. dark strands. All right, and now we're gonna get started on the left eye. So I'm gonna go in and do that darker outline again first. Around the edges of the pupil. And we're gonna accentuate these white marks in the eyes. Turn down my heat just a little bit to about a 4.5. I tend to turn down my heat when I'm working in like confined areas. I'm gonna go in and erase a little bit around this eye. Sorry about that, guys. I paused the video and forgot to press start again. Basically, I just went in and darkened up this pupil a little bit more. I wanted to darken the rims around the eye and then drag out some darker strands around those shadows just to give the effect of that fur brushing out from the sides of the eye. And don't be afraid to accentuate like a few like dark shadows in the hair here and there, because I feel like it just makes it pop out a lot more. So I always recommend, like, you know, make shape with your shadows where you can. Like, you know, if you see a little, like a triangular shadow here, like, don't be afraid to accentuate that while you're burning. Like, I mapped out this shadow line here, which you can kind of see, so, but I'm not gonna wanna just fill it in, you know, one solid texture. I'm gonna wanna drag out these strands of fur to give it that nice texture. Dragging this fur out from the side, or the inside of the nose. Yeah, so it's the same thing on this side of the face. You want to kind of capture that essence of the really long hairs around the snout by dragging these nice long fur lines. Erase these shadows a little bit more. Alright guys, so now that I have the eyes pretty much done, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Dremel tool and accentuate those little highlights that are in the pupils, just to make it stand out a little bit more. So I just have like a medium ball tip on my Dremel tool here, and this is a craft Dremel tool. I will tag a link to it in the description below. So I'm going to turn that on about a 4. And I'm just going to be going over the little highlights in the eyes here. My camera went out of focus for a little bit, my bad. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. Ooh. But I'm also going to be going over, just dragging out some highlights in the hair, like in between the eyes here and right around the eyes, just to give it, like I said, that extra layer of contrast so it pops out. sagging out from the sides of the nose. The Dremel tool is definitely a game changer. Again, make sure you're following in the direction of the fur. And a lot of times I'll just go in with the Dremel tool at the very end after I'm done burning everything. I'm just doing for the sake of this video to show you guys how I use the Dremel in different areas of the face. Yeah, so that is it for part 3, how I did the eyes, and the next video will be on different fur textures, so feel free to check that out. And yeah, thanks guys for checking out another video from me.